If you're a fan of dance music at the moment, you know that LFO Based Leads are all the rave right now, from the Future Rave one that you hear in David Guetta's tracks to Layton Giordani sequences throughout his track. By the end of this video, you should be able to create these leads yourself. You will have a clear understanding of what they are and what you can do with them. For this tutorial, I will be utilizing Serum, but again, as always, if you pay attention to the theory, you should be able to do this in any synthesizer of your choice. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator, and in a lot of the old school analog synths, they're actually used as automatic knob turners. Let's assume here that we have this basic shape, which is a sine, and I want to have it go to a saw. I have to actively do it myself and move it. However, if I have an LFO, I can use an LFO to move it for me as I play it. Now notice that it doesn't stay for too long on the saw that I just picked, the shape. And that is because LFOs are going to move over time, and they are also going to be loopable, which means that if I hold this down, it's going to keep doing the same sequence. This makes them different from other modulators, knob turners that you can use out there, like envelopes, step sequencers. So what I want you to know about LFOs is that it means low frequency oscillators, just so you can sound smart to your friends, but they're automatic knob turners that are loopable. From here, we can start to move in making a basic sound that is LFO based. Now let's start with the basics. We're going to go into our oscillator A, analog, and pick basic shapes. And then let's pick a saw. So from here, I'm going to grab LFO 1. Left clicking and moving it to the level of this saw here. Okay, that's the volume. Now, as I do this here, we can play something. If you notice, as I put the LFO, there's this blue outline here, and that's the modulation amount. How much do we want to move this knob by? So again, just think of the LFO as your little assistant. It's helping us move and stuff. LFOs, again, they're going to loop. And they also have a speed, and that is going to be determined by the rate here. Now you can see we have half bar, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16. Hella vibrato-ish. So this shows us 1/16, 1/8. It's also going to be based on the BPM. So if you're like at 131, then 1/16 is going to be a lot fast. From here, LFOs can be unipolar or bipolar. So that just means they can either go in one direction or in two directions. Now in Serum, the way you change this is through either Alt or Option, Shift, Click. And you're going to see that now when I try and increase and decrease the modulation amount, it goes both ways. Option, Shift, Click. It goes in one direction. I think for PC users, this is going to be Alt, Shift, Click. And in the matrix, you can also see here we have bipolar, two directions, unipolar, one direction. My favorite boy band, by the way. Backstreet Boys what? Now let's get into the good stuff, okay? Because from here, we can start to make some very sexy, simple leads. So let's put the level down on this oscillator, and let's put the modulation amount all the way up. From there, let's set a rate of 1/16, and then just hear this. The next important thing with LFOs is the shapes. So right now we're hearing a certain shape, which is the triangle shape, which is a very gradual increase, gradual decrease. From there, we can click on this folder, Basics, and we can use the traditional waves. Now in traditional analog synthesizers, what you would see a lot would be square, saw, sine, triangle. Those were like the big four. And then you would have sample and holds and noise, which is other things. But with these ones, you should be able to do a lot of damage, to your listeners' ears in a good way. Saw down, it's going to look like this. We go from max value, then we come down and then jump back up to max. So this is going to be the more popular one that you tend to hear a lot in some leads, but this is the way it's going to sound. So there we go. We have a saw-based one. From there, you can explore all the ones. Like a square is going to be the cool one that you can use to make like the ambulance effect, like sine. I love using the sine on stuff just to give it movement. It's like a wave. Okay, so now you know what LFOs are doing, how they do it, the different kinds of shapes they can have. Now we can bring filters into play. Now, if you don't know what filters are, the best way to explain them is that they'll take something away from the sound, okay? And this is called subtractive synthesis. This is what people used to think was that if you have a saw and you subtract, you can make it sound like a saxophone or a trumpet if you shape it a certain way. So for us, what we want it for is because we can use the filter to add character to the sound, but also make it smack, make it da-da-da-da-da-da-da, do that effect that we all know and love. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this modulator here and just keep the level down. We can right click, reset or remove. And from there, LFO 1 is going to go to the cutoff. Notice that it went into bipolar mode. We want this to be in unipolar. So we're going to Alt Shift or Option Shift click. Okay, and there we go. We're going to start it low and then we're going to move it up. So from here, it's going to sound like this. Completely different sound, and that's because the filter is shaping the sound. Now, all we're doing is telling this filter, cut off again, to move up and then move down at a very fast rate, and then we decide that with the rate. Okay, let's turn this unison up to get super sauce. Now we're starting to get the tech house sound, but don't worry, if you're into techno, we're going to get there. It's all about patience. So again, you can use different kinds of filters. MG Low 24 will be a lot more strict and cut more highs out. Of course, you can use any other one like band passes, etc. From there, we have a resonance, which is going to be where the cutoff point is happening. Then you can accentuate that, which gives you the... Okay, cool. So now you should know mostly everything there is to making LFO based leads. Now you just need a bit of practicality and experience. So we're going to be making some cool sounds. The first lead we're going to make here is going to be the generic tech house one that everyone hears a lot. And that is going to be that. So in order to do this effect, we're just going to have a saw. We're going to need a filter. We'll go with MG Low 18. We'll lower the cutoff. LFO 1 will go on the cutoff. We already know how to do that, modulate that up. And we're going to go for this look, a saw. So that's going to be a saw down. All right, from there, here we have our rate. The rate is based on the BPM that you have set. So we're at 130 right now. If I want this to sound a lot smoother, so for instance, here we have this. Notice how it's like there's big jumps sometimes. Then I can take the BPM off, which means I'm unsyncing the LFO. And now it's based on hertz. So remember, low frequency oscillator. That's what LFO is. That's why we have these very low hertz, 22.3 hertz. So it's very low. Our ears can't hear this oscillator. And that's why in analog synths, they were used to move knobs. Oh yeah, now we can do that. That's the generic tech house effect. And then from there, the sound just add maybe something like that. And there you go. But how do we get this to happen? Again, we're using the LFO to do that, but now how do we get this rate to come from high to down? Well, this is where we have to introduce another modulator, which is the envelope. Now the envelope is going to be based on ADSR, and I recommend you watch a video on that if you can, which stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. Okay, so what I'm going to do is lower my sustain and lower my decay like so. Now, this is a good thing to know just for basics right now. If you don't know anything about ADSR, just know lower your sustain down, and then your decay is going to decide how long it takes for us to go from high to low. Simple as that. So now we can grab envelope 2, click, and drag it to rate. If you're in a different synth, you're going to probably have to go into the matrix or, go to the envelope and route it to the LFO 1 rate or LFO 2 rate. From there, I can choose the highest amount, which we're going to start here in the envelope. And then we're going to go down. This is the speed that we're going to do it at to this. So now it's going to be, as you can see there. There we go. And we can make the decay longer. Okay. And then a little more. And you can do a lot because you can have this in the middle. Again, you can mess with the shape. From here, we can get into creating other LFO based leads. Like we can do a gated one, which plays chords. So to do this, we're going to use 2 oscillators. This oscillator is going to be a +7. So it's going to be the perfect fifth. And it's going to pick pretty much chords. So what I'm going to do is lower the levels down on these. LFO 1 will be routed to both of them. It should be unipolar by itself, and then I'm gonna go and grab a square, and then from there I can play that, and then we could do. Let's turn mono legato on so that way we can glide our notes. Sounds nice. And if you want to change this up, let's say you want to make it sound more techno, because again, the cool thing is knowing these techniques, you can put them in any genre. It's just the way that you shape the sound. And we could go maybe a vocal format. Maybe put some unison, which again, we're adding voices and detuning. And let's turn the sem into a +3, which will give us a minor. Let's put a reverb. Okay. Now from here, we can get more freaky with the LFO. If you're not in Serum, then you might not be able to do this, but now I could do little things like this, where I'm holding shift and clicking and creating. Okay. For those of you guys that aren't in Serum, you might have to use a step sequencer, and the step sequence from here, let's add a filter here. We'll add one of the fancy filters. From here, if you don't know, just experiment. You know, that's the beautiful thing about sound design. It's good to know it all and understand what stuff means, but the magic happens when you're experimenting. That's how you develop experience, and that's how you develop, again, the knowledge. If you ever wonder, like, oh, Sen, how do you know how to make that sound? It's just experience. I've made it before, so I know how to make it. Now from here, we have more than one oscillator, so I could grab another one and put it on the wavetable position. Now that's the beautiful thing about wavetable synthesizers, is that we can add movement. Let's lower the speed down. Now let's do one more lead, and this one is going to be probably one of the more sought after ones. They're Anyma based style, like LFO leads that do crazy stuff. They're a little bit more intricate to program, but I'll teach you guys some stuff. And from there, it's a lot of experimentation, you know, messing around with stuff to get cool effects that you can use in your music. So what I'm going to do is we're going to stick with a basic saw. So we'll just go basic saw shapes like so. I'll use 2 and utilize some of my techniques to make it sound more analog-y. Okay. From there, I'm going to lower the level down to maybe around here. And we're going to put the LFOs here. Now, I don't know what kind of sound we're getting, so this is me just freestyling it, but knowing theory helps when you're trying to make these sounds, because if you understand theory, then it makes life a lot easier. From here, I'm going to create the saw shape, and I'm going to have no BPM on it, so it's not synced to the BPM we're at, so that it allows it to be free. From there, I'm going to use an envelope, lower the sustain, and remember, just use my decay. I'm going to put it here, so that way we have some movement, and I'm going to increase that rather a lot, so that way. And we're going to put mono legato on it. Okay, from there, we're going to add some reverb. Okay. We have set up this modulation. Now we're going to add a filter. And for the filter, I'm going to have this same oscillator there on it. B, go in. I'm going to add maybe the envelope to go higher. But at the same time, I'm going to add an LFO to modulate now my rate. Again, this is where it gets kind of intricate. The reason for this is, again, I'm experimenting to get unique sound design, because that's what the Anyma stuff is. When you hear that, I'm pretty sure Anyma wasn't like, I'm going to make a lead that's this. He was more like, okay, I'm going to make an LFO based lead. But then from there, I'm going to experiment to get something cool, and whatever's the best outcome, you go with. So for this one, I'm going to go into the matrix now. LFO 2 was routed to the LFO 1 rate, so I can lower the amount. And then I'm going to lower the speed on this one by a lot. Okay, cool. So you have something like that. Let's maybe decrease this speed so it's more like so. Okay, from there now, I have to find something cool. So one of the things we can use is, again, our effects from Serum, like a phaser, a flanger. We can use flangers at very high feedback to get these, I call them metallic effects. There's multiple techniques to get metallic effects. This is one of them. A flanger is a time-based effect, so it has an LFO. As you can see, we have rate, and then we have the depth. So we can lower that down if we want to maintain a certain depth. So you can do that. Now, notice how maybe that might sound cool, and it means like, I want to use that. Well, now I have to use Serum's filter in the effects section. Okay, and then we put the same LFO here. So this is called signal flow. It's the way that you're creating the sound. So we have the flanger effect, and I'm like, I need a filter after it so that I can sell the effect a lot better. I can control, so it's not so, but it's more controlled. Now I can play around with. Okay, you can add a chorus and maybe add a high feedback as well. Okay, we can lower this down a bit more. Okay. Now, the other thing I can do with LFO 3, again, we have like a lot of LFOs. I can slowly have this come up if I wanted to. So that way, maybe at a low rate, when I play, maybe not by that much. Beautiful. Okay, LFO. Let's add everything together maybe. Let's see how it sounds. Let's make the depth higher. Let's see what happens. Okay, so again, LFO based leads, the idea of it is to move knobs. That's all we're doing. And then when you hear this effect, now you know, oh, that's caused because of the rate falling down, etc. That's the beautiful thing. That's how you want to learn this stuff. You don't want to be a know-it-all and just LFO, low frequency oscillator. You want to know what it does. When it comes to the LFO, there's a couple of cool things that we can do. First off, you can see we have the mode. We have an envelope mode, which is going to make the LFO be non-loopable. It just plays once and then that's it. It doesn't loop. I'm still holding down the note. We're going to have trig mode, which makes it start from the beginning every single time. So this could be useful if, for instance, you want this modulation to occur every time you play a new note. Notice how the line goes back, keeps going back to the beginning. Versus if it's set to off, it continues where it left off. Okay, so very important. From there, we have some very important ones, which are the rise and the delay. So I'm going to get rid of some of these right now and just focus on LFO 1. The rise will make it so that the effect gradually comes in. So again, here it says it takes 2 seconds for it to come in the full modulation amount. If I have it at 0, instant. But if I have it set to 3 seconds, it's slowly introduced. Then from there, we have a delay. This is more of a actual delay where like it's instant. After the 2 seconds are up, it instantly starts. Okay. And then we have a smooth, which is going to make the automation you're doing a lot smoother. So it does something. I don't know what, but it may be something like this, where it's like not so sudden, but it makes it a little bit more flowy. Okay. So what it might do is here, it might add something like this. Another classic lead, which many of you guys might consider chord based, is obviously the deadmau5, Cascade, Atom, K sound from back in the day, which I got a request for. So the way the sound works is pretty nice. We're going to use 2 saws. One of them will be at +7, and we'll leave this one at 0 so we can play chords again. But then we're going to use a filter, route both of them into it, lower it, use one of our LFOs, move it to the left so we have a saw down, trig it, have it at 4th maybe, and play. And let's set it to maybe a 1/8 rate. From there, let's control the modulation amount. We can add some tasteful reverb and delay. Now from here, let's put this one down an octave. Let's add some noise, voices, lower detunement. Okay. Let's go higher on the cut on the filter. Sounding nice. Let's go into now our global section and actually stack our voices here. We'll do this one 12 times 2. This one as well. One there. Now let me show you this actually. Let's add a mod here so that we can move it up. All right, so this is a very iconic one. You can switch it up and use different waves from the basic shapes if you desire. For instance, we can go with some squares, but now if you notice as I switch, there's this weird noise that occurs, and that's because mono legato isn't turned on. Another cool sound we can make is somewhat of a pitch-based one, and we haven't talked about pitch. So pitch is just going to be the okay? Now, some of you guys probably just had an orgasm as you heard, because obviously you've heard that in a Mr. Oizo track, some old school like modern techno, but also there's an Anyma lead that does something very similar, but the sound's just a bit different. And that's going to be frequency fine bass. Now, inside of Serum, we have the secret chaos LFO. Can't explain what it does, but I can tell you it's chaos driven. So it moves around a lot. So we're going to route it to something by going oscillator 8, and we're actually going to route it to the fine. Okay. That way we never go out of key. Now we can put the amount. We're going to put it bipolar. So this gives some nice randomness to the lead if that's what you want. And then here, let's make it maybe every bar. C mono. You can also add it to more sensitive ones like the chords, but on this one you have to be really careful. So coarse pitch is going to cover a lot. So we can put maybe 7. We got to increase the speed. Let's put it lower like at 1. There we go. Now let's try this. Let's do something cool. We're going to add a filter here, and let's use the rise feature here, which is going to gradually make this modulation come in. As you can see, but let's make it maybe. Okay, and I wish it was like a unrise. So let's add some delays. And now let's just try to make this sound cooler. Phaser, flangers. There we go. The other thing is, again, remember, you can also put other LFOs on that and make them move fast. Like 1/16s. Maybe a bit more so it's more apparent. Okay. And then from here, we are in a wavetable synthesizer. And the power of wavetable synthesizers is that you have pretty much sounds that have been recorded over time, and you can pick where in that process you want or what section of time or reverse it, etc. So let's use another LFO to do something cool like that. Ooh. Okay. Now in Melodic House, we also have LFO Based Leads, and we kind of made it, but the difference is that we're going to route an LFO, do this, 1/16, and then very quiet like this. Okay, and usually this is used sort of as a layer in the wall of sound you get, but it adds a lot of atmosphere because we can add delays, etc., to make it sound nicer. We can smoothen, maybe add a bit of and we get something of sorts, and now we can add Now I want to teach you guys a really cool effect that I use in my sound banks, and that is the octave jumps. So a lot of people will do octave jumps just by going 1 octave up. But for us, we're going to put it here on the OCT, stands for octave. Do that, pull down, and then we're going to use the square feature. So that way, we get this really nice sort of sequence sound, but now you could do really... for melodic style stuff, or even the new stuff happening with... I was watching Ultra and we saw a lot of these kind of leads were garage based in a sense. Okay, one last lead I'll show you guys, and again, this is probably like just my old timer self missing the good days, but Cascade and Deadmau5 did play together. But back then they had the Swedish pad, and the Swedish pad was beautiful because what you would have is an LFO based lead, which would help breaks just sound a little more fuller, nicer. You would need a sine for this instead of the traditional saws we've been using. And then we just use something of sorts like a low rate. Or sorry, 1/16. And then don't open it up so much, but... I believe we would also probably do it on the level just to sell the effect more. Swedish pads. So if you guys enjoyed the video and learned something new, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you love the way that I teach. Now, I do have a brand new techno pack coming out at the end of this week, guys, called Paradox Volume 4. Paradox Volume 1 to 3 have helped over 7,000 producers already shape the sound of modern techno. It's some of the more iconic packs that I've created in the past 4 years. And this is going to be Volume 4, which should be the best volume yet because there's a lot of new techniques that I've implemented in order to get some good sounds for you guys. So if you guys are making techno and you want to check it out, it comes out at the end of this week. Much love, and you guys have a great rest of your day.